We're good.
Okay. So let's get into this, you guys.
Yep.
Ladies. Let's
Yep.
get into this stupid thing.
Let's do this. How was
Okay,
your
hold on.
Thanksgiving, by the way? Did you
It
have
was
a good?
okay. It's
Good.
fine. Yeah, it was all right.
Good.
I managed not to kill anybody, so that was good.
Yeah, I'm just glad the holiday craziness is over because I'm ready to get to work now.
Well,
I mean,
again, it can
Thanksgiving.
be a little distracting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do a little Unit 9 review.
Okay.
You guys ready? Here we go. Give me a second.
Hey,
We
are
are
we gonna go
gonna
over U12 quiz too?
we can, but U12 isn't due until December 12th or December 8th. Unit 9, 10, and 11 is due on Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, Thursday for me, but yeah, I understand that
Yeah,
already.
well, yeah, it's about just it's priorities of work, right? Like
Yeah.
this is due first.
Okay.
So give me a second and let's go over this piece of crap. Let me turn my presenter view thing off. And okay, now I can see what you're saying. So I think I got this figured out now.
Okay.
Okay, so go through this. You guys see my thing?
Yeah.
I got it all kind of working now. See, I can see what you're saying. Okay, so hypothalamus. It's a broad review. What's the hypothalamus do? In one word, what's the hypothalamus do in the endocrine system?
It's the uh master. No, that's the
It's the master
pituitary.
gland. Yes, that's exactly
Oh,
right.
master
This
gland.
this is the thinker. This is where everything comes from. This. Okay.
Yeah.
So if that's the master gland, what's the pituitary? What's it do?
It's the it's the data center, right?
Yeah, it's the shipping. Yeah, it's the shipping center, right?
Yeah.
It's the shipping center. So what's SAIDH?
That's system or symptom of inappropriate um the ADH. So symptoms of inappropriate ADH.
Yeah, it's basically too much ADH, right?
Yeah.
Too much ADH and too little ADH is DI. Now, the one thing that we need to remember about this, so if I have too much ADH, and we had a really good discussion about this in our review session with Megan, she really helped clear some stuff up and made it easier. So if I have too much ADH, what's happening in my body? What's happening?
If you have too much of it, that means you're drowning, right?
Yeah, it means that we're holding on to fluid, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the key thing. So if I have so if SAIDH is too much ADH, then what's DI?
That means dehydration.
I have too little ADH, right? I
Yeah.
have not enough ADH. So, and then somewhere in the middle is the appropriate amount of ADH, right? My body's function normally. Okay. The key thing that we need to remember about this is this term osmolality and an osmolarity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I have too much ADH, right? Okay, what's that telling the body to do?
Um, let's see.
It's telling the body to hold on to fluid, right? To hold on to
Right.
water. Okay. So what Megan said that was really interesting that I really needed some help to understand that really got clear for me on Tuesday was the level and amount of sodium in the body between SAIDH, ADH, and DI does not change. Okay. They're the same, right?
Right.
So say for instance, let's just use an arbitrary number. It doesn't have to be correct. But let's just say that we had the normal amount of sodium is between 135 and 145, right?
Right.
So let's just say that right now the body has a total of 140 sodium, right? Total of 140. So SAIDH isn't changing the amount of sodium that's present. It's just telling the body to hold on to the sodium. It's saying don't get rid of it. And in this case, SAIDH, we have too much SAIDH in the system. And so the body's not giving up any sodium at all. And because it's not giving up any sodium, the amount of water that's being retained from urination is going to be low. And so if let's just say the total molecules of water to sodium is normally at 1 to 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
1 to 10. So for every one molecule of sodium, I have 10 water molecules that I would normally maintain. Well, if I'm an SAIDH, then the amount of that I have available would be I would hold on to water. So now the total volume of water is 1 to 15. So I'm 5 more water molecules per sodium molecules more. Right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening here is the total volume of sodium in relationship to water is lower. I have more water present, even though the total number of sodium molecules has not changed. It always, so between DI and SAIDH, and let's just say I'm the subject, I'm the patient, right? My total level of sodium of 140 never changes, okay? But in SAIDH, my total amount of water that I maintain, instead of being 1 to 10 ratio, is now 1 to 15. So in relation to sodium, if I've got 1 to 15 sodium now, how much sodium to water do I have? Is my amount of sodium diminished, or is it higher? Do I have a lower concentration of sodium in SAIDH or a higher concentration of SAIDH?
So you would have a higher concentration, right?
If I have a higher level of water to sodium, if I normally am at 1 to 10, right? That's normal, right? Say that's normal. That's normal range. Everything's normal. But I get an elevated level of SAIDH and I get to 1 to 15. Now my relationship of sodium to water is lower. I have a lower concentration of sodium because I've got more water molecules present, even though the total number of sodium molecules has not changed, right? I've got the same number of sodium molecules. I'm still at 140, but now I've got a lower concentration of sodium because the total amount of water has gone up by like 5 times 40 or 5 times 140. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, so now let's ask. So let's just do a quick math problem. Okay, let me get my calculator out. So I'm going to put my calculator up for you guys, and we'll do. I'll show the math, right? So get the calculator up, and then I'll show you. I'll give you 1 second, and we'll go through this. Because this actually became really, really clear to me when we were doing it in class, because this has been really unclear because they're talking about osmolarity and oh my gosh, what's going on? Okay, so now you guys can see my calculator, right? Mm-hmm. So we said that the total number of sodium was 140, correct? That's normal range. And we said that the total number of water is 1 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
So the total number of sodium molecules to water would be 140 to 1,400. So it'd be 140 over 1,400. Now, if I take and I go now in SAIDH, the total number of sodium to water is 1 to 15. I still have 140 sodiums, right? Mm-hmm. But now I times that number by 15. I now have 2,100 water molecules. And so I have now displaced the 140 sodium molecules by 2,100 water. So the total number of sodiums to water has been reduced. I still have only 140, but because I have 2,100 water molecules present, my total concentration of sodium has been reduced. Not because it's been reduced in the body. The system still has 140 water molecules, but sodium molecules, but because the total number of water molecules is now 2,100, or the ratio is 1 to 15. Okay, and it's because this number got bigger right here. Okay, you guys tracking that?
Yeah.
Okay, now if I'm in DI and I say now my relationship of water to sodium is now 1 to 5. So now I got 1 sodium molecule to every 5 molecules of water. So I still maintain 140 molecules of water, but now I only displace them by 5. Look at this number now. Now I've got 140 molecules of sodium to 700 water molecules. So now I have less water present because I've gotten rid of some of it. So this is a higher concentration. So think of it this way, okay? When you walk on your, so Angela, do you have children?
Yeah.
Do they have toys they leave on the floor?
No.
They don't have, no, I'm saying, do they ever leave stuff out on the floor that you have to walk through? If it's 1 to 5 toys per square foot of carpet, how easy is it to walk on their stuff and hurt your feet?
Oh, pretty easy.
It's really high, right? What if it's 1 to 15 square? So I have 1 toy for every 15 square foot of floor space in their room. How much easier it is to walk around their toys and not step on their toys and hurt your feet?
It's pretty
It's easier to navigate around their stuff because there's less toys per square foot of space. And so that's what they're saying. So in SAIDH, I'm at 1 to 15. So my concentration or molarity is lower. I have a lower molarity in SAIDH, or I have a lower concentration of sodium to water. In DI, I have a higher concentration or an increased molarity because the sodium that's present to the total number of water is lower. Okay, we good?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What is
so that was
talking about?
We were just talking about the relationship between concentration of water to sodium and SAIDH and DI. Remember, I think Paula, I think you were there. I think you were there on Tuesday when we were going through this when I was the demonstrator.
Yeah,
and I kind of got in trouble because I didn't understand. What was that?
DI is the thick blood, and
and so the relationship is the total amount of sodium to water in the blood, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in SAIDH, the relationship of sodium to water is lower. That means there's more numbers of water present for every 1 sodium. In DI, there's less numbers of water to the number of sodiums present. So my viscosity is higher in DI than it is in SAIDH.
Yeah, they both pee a lot, but one of them sodium left behind. The DI sodium left behind.
Yeah, DI, the sodium is left in the system, and in SAIDH, the sodium isn't left in this. Yeah. It's just the relationship of water to sodium.
Yeah.
Okay, so we said SAIDH is an excess level of ADH. What is ADH's job in the body? What does it do when it hits the kidneys?
The vasoconstrictor.
Well, it embeds sodium in those tubules, and those sodium molecules that are present down there tell the body to hold on to water. It says, "Hey, hold on to water," and we get a lower concentration of our urine becomes lower concentrate, right? So in SAIDH, we have clear. It's going to be clear urine. Our urine's going to be clear. In DI, because those sodium molecules aren't present, we're going to have sorry, I'm totally wrong.
The other way around.
In SAIDH, our urine is going to be dark yellow, pushing on to. It's just going to be really, really dark because the total amount of water present to the other molecules is going to be higher. So it's going to be yellow. Where DI, we're peeing a lot, and we're telling the body, "Hey, get rid of water. Get rid of water here." And so the body's going to be getting rid of water, and our urine's going to be clear in DI. Okay, I beat that to death. Okay, just remember. SAIDH, the body wants to hold on to sodium, which means it wants to hold on to water. Yeah. And DI, the body's telling to use that sodium to get rid of water.
Okay,
is that it? And then all the rest of that stuff is just the scientific chemistry stuff that will help you understand this. Okay, we good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thyroid. What's the thyroid's main function? What does it do?
It's to secrete
T3 and T4.
T3, T4.
Okay, that's great to say that, but what does the thyroid actually do now? What's its job?
Metabolism.
It controls metabolism, and so when we have hyperthyroidism or Graves' disease, right? What's hyperthyroidism do to the body? What are we going to have there?
So you're going to have, you're going to feel hot. You're going to have the the bulging eyes.
Yeah, we're gonna have an elevated metabolism, right? So we're gonna be warmer. Our heart rate and blood pressure and our breathing are gonna all accelerate and get higher, right? Okay. What's going on in the thyroid storm?
Oh, that's when they get really hot, and let's see, their temperature rises to like 105 to 106, and they're tachycardic.
So in this one here, your temperature starts to go really, really high. You start to burn off your enzymes. They can't function anymore. Those proteins start to denature in your brain. And then, oh, by the way, your heart stops.
Yeah.
Because your blood pressure and your heart rate are elevated for so long, and it's such a high extent that your heart stops. That's thyroid storm. So what's hypothyroidism? Addison?
Hypo is when it's not secreting enough.
Sorry again. Who's dinging? Who's going bing?
I know. I don't know who's binging.
I am at
No idea.
work. Sorry, guys.
Oh, okay. I just like
my
I took
microphone off.
No, it's okay. You're good. I was just like, what's the dinging? So, what's hypothyroidism, Addison?
It's basically the exact opposite.
Yeah, it's just the opposite of Graves, right? Of hyperthyroidism.
Yeah.
So, am I gonna gain weight in hypothyroidism, or am I gonna lose weight?
Gain.
Sorry, say it again.
Gain.
You're gonna gain weight in hypothyroidism, and why would you gain weight in hypothyroidism?
It's like slowed down.
Yeah, so your body's not calling for energy because all the other respiration, heart rate, and other systems that burn energy aren't working as hard. It's basically if I drive my car at 85 miles an hour and I drive my car at 15 miles an hour, which one's going to burn fuel faster?
If you wait.
If you drive a car, if you drive your car, your cool guy Hyundai or Nissan or whatever you have, and you drive it at 85 miles an hour, or you drive it at 15 miles an hour, which one burns more gas?
Well, probably the 85, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, when you burn your car and you drive it at higher RPMs or higher rates per minute, it means that the engine's turning over faster, and so that cylinders in the engine are calling for more fuel because it's burning faster, it's turning faster. So that the firing and burning of fuel in the engine is higher, and so you're going to burn fuel faster when you're driving faster. And the same is true with our bodies. So when we burn faster, as in hyperthyroidism, you call for more energy, and so you start to recruit energy from your reserve to keep that going. In hypothyroidism, you're telling your engine to run slower. And so when you do that, you gain weight because your excess calories that you consume through eating, they're just stored as fat. Okay?
Okay.
And then what's myxedema?
Myxedema is when you have more complications with like swelling of the skin and soft tissues.
Yeah, edema just tells you it's edema, right? That's retention of fluid, right?
Uh-huh.
So when you slow respiration and heart rate down, it gives that fluid more time to leak into the peripheral tissues.
Okay.
Okay, and I believe myxedema is full body edema. We're going to get edema in all four extremities and in the face with myxedema. So yeah, the whole system has time to retain fluid. Okay, parathyroid, what does it do?
So it controls your calcium. So
yep, controls calcium levels.
Too much. Hypo is too little calcium.
What does the calcium do in the body? What is it? What is its actual function?
So if you have too much calcium, your muscles are too calm, and if you have too little, then you get the tetany. Your muscles are too calm when you have too much calcium, and if you don't have enough calcium, your muscles can't calm down, meaning the Chevestic sign, and like your muscle twitches and stuff.
Okay, what's the normal range of calcium in the body?
8.5 to 10.5.
Excellent, Angela. Excellent. Good review from Unit 2. Okay, my next number 5, the adrenal glands. I'm missing one of these in here, so we're gonna go through this. So number 1 says adrenal medulla. Okay, so which system, adrenergic or cholinergic, belongs to the adrenal medulla? Which one belongs to that structure? Adrenergic or cholinergic?
I think it's adrenergic.
Okay, so remember that cholinergic system, corticosteroids or cortisol is released in the cholinergic system, and cholinergic and cortisol sounds like cortex. Okay. So number two, the cholinergic system is associated with the adrenal cortex right here, and the adrenergic system is associated with the adrenal medulla. Okay, guys, is everybody on board with that?
Yeah.
I just lost Hala. Where the hell did she go?
I think she has to work.
I think she's at work. Okay, so we good? Addison, are you still with me on that? So what's the error? What's the error in my slide? Where's the error in my slide?
So you forgot, let's see, adrenal, medulla.
Adrenergic system and adrenal medulla are associated correctly, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what's going on in cholinergic?
Let's see.
What does it belong to? What part of the adrenal gland does the cholinergic system belong to? Remember, CCC. Cholinergic belongs to cortex, and then
adrenal cortex. Is that
yes, yes, and it's not on my slide. I haven't updated I made an error when I made the slide, right?
Yeah.
And so I just omitted it. I didn't make an error per se. I just omitted it. Okay.
Okay. You did.
Okay. Let's move on. Now that's made. Okay. So let's talk about the adrenergic system, right? Okay. Yeah. What does the adrenergic system control?
So.
Addison, yes, and then?
I was going to say the fight or flight, right?
Fight or flight, correct. And what's the other way we can say fight or flight?
Rest and digest.
No, rest and digest goes to cholinergic. That's the opposing system. So fight or flight is one side, and rest and digest is the other side. Now, when I say fight or flight, I can also say sympathetic. And then fight or flight is associated with parasympathetic. Excuse me. So fight or flight is associated with with fight or flight, and that's the adrenergic side. Okay. Rest and digest is parasympathetic, and it's associated with the cholinergic side. So there are 4 terms, ladies. I'm gonna change gears just for 1 second because I want to write this out. You guys give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, so let me cheat for a second and bring this up. Let me see if I can get my stupid pin to work. Bastard. Just work, damn you. Just gonna get this to work. Okay, it's up. Sweet. Are you guys with me still?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I say, damn it. If I say, hold on, give me 1 second. I'm still learning how to do this. Give me 1 second. I'm switching screens for just 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. Let me stop this sucker. Switch screens to this guy. Okay, let me do this then. Okay. I appreciate you guys being patient while I learn how to do this, okay? Okay, then bring up. Okay. We're all still friends now, right? Okay, so I want to draw. Okay, so like I said, there are 4 systems that we're talking about here. There are 4 terms. Okay, what did I say the first term was? Adrenergic, right? Okay, so adrenergic is the term, right? So what system belongs to adrenergic?
The sympathetic, the fight or flight.
Yep, sympathetic, and that is also called fight or flight. And what part of the adrenal gland does this belong to?
So it's the adrenal medulla.
Medulla, right? Okay, excellent. And that's kind of crappy handwriting, but see how I put those all together? So if I say fight or flight, what else am I also meaning, even if I don't say it? So if I say fight or flight, I want you to immediately think of sympathetic, adrenal medulla, and adrenergic. Those things all have to come in your mind, no matter what I say. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, now let's put the other one up. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to write this out, and then we're going to review this for a second, because this can get you down the rabbit trail very, very quickly. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to use my little highlighter, and then I'm going to go adrenal medulla this time. Okay, hold on. Wrong. Let me erase that. Erase. Okay, go back, and I'm going to say adrenal cortex. Okay, what systems are associated with the adrenal cortex now?
Rest and digest.
Rest and digest. Yep. What is rest and digest also called?
Parasympathetic.
Parasympathetic. Yep. And what else is that associated with?
So
cholinergic.
Yep.
Okay. So if I ever say parasympathetic nervous system, what else am I also saying that you have to think of yourself? I said parasympathetic. So what does that also mean?
So that's the
Yeah, so if I say parasympathetic, you in your brain have to say rest and digest, adrenal cortex, and cholinergic. Those have to come into your mind at the same time. Does that make sense? Okay, let's play a little game. I'm going to shut this down. I'm going to shut this bad boy down, and I'm going to go back to the slideshow now, okay? Knowing that this is jacked up a little bit. Okay, here we go. I appreciate y'all being patient with me.
No worries.
Okay, so we're back to the slideshow, right? Everything's great. We're just wonderful now. Come on, you bastard. Just work. There we go. Okay, so we're back to the slideshow. So I say adrenal medulla, or excuse me, yeah, adrenal medulla. So what's going on? So what? As soon as I say medulla, what else do you have to think of?
The
You're there, Addison. Keep going.
fight or flight.
Sympathetic, fight or flight, and what's the last one?
Adrenergic.
Adrenergic. Hallelujah. Excellent. So if Addison got the adrenergic side, then Andrea, will you give us the cholinergic side?
The cholinergic is the muscarinic and nicotinic.
No. We're not going there yet. Those are receptors. Let's just make sure that we have the four main terms that associate with that one term all made up. So on the cholinergic side, that is the adrenal cortex side. What are the other two terms that go with that we just went over on the piece of paper that I drew out?
Just rest and digest.
Okay, so cholinergic, rest and digest, parasympathetic, and adrenal cortex. When I say any of those terms, the other terms that associate with the one have to all come out. So let's do it one more time. So Angela, I'm going to throw out a term, any term, and I want you to bring the other three terms for that side of this system with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want you to tell me all the structures that are associated with fight or flight.
So sympathetic.
Okay.
And then you got your adrenic receptors.
No, don't. You're not going receptors. Those four main terms that we have to know which side that we're on. Like what I'm saying is, if you hear one of these four terms, that is the very top of the structure. It's like saying the King of England, who's now also Lord of the Realm, which means he's also keeper of the sword of truth. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
When we in the United States, we don't have this, but in England and Europe, they have hierarchies of like aristocrats, right? So when you hear like the King of England or like the Queen of England right now is the Queen of England, she's also the head of the Windsor family. She's also keeper of the realm. She's also, royal monarch of the Commonwealth of Great Britain. Does that make sense? We can call her any one of those things, and if you hear one, you have to think of all the other ones and know that that belongs to her.
Okay.
Okay. So you at the end of the day, if you say, oh, because when you get down to like adrenal, when you say, hey, man, it's fight or flight, and you go, oh, those are A1, A2, B1, B2. Those are the receptors that it works on, right? That's like saying she has an interior cabinet minister. She has a military minister. Those are underlings to her. But when I say adrenergic system, I have to say, oh, the Queen of England is the adrenergic head. I can also call her the adrenal medulla. I can also call her fight or flight, and I can also call her the adrenergic system. All four of those terms are all names for the Queen of England, the top of the system. And then once I start moving down to receptors and the chemicals that work in that system, that activate that system, now we're talking about communication lines and underlings. Those are underlings of her. So if the Queen of England is the adrenal medulla, what are her other titles?
But I'm just saying that it's the sympathetic and fight or flight, right? That's what you want out of it.
Yeah. So when I say adrenergic system, you need to say adrenal medulla, you need to say fight or flight, and you need to say sympathetic. So all four of those terms are associated together and mean the exact same thing.
Okay.
And on the cholinergic side, what are the other three terms that associate to cholinergic that all mean the same thing if you hear them?
So, parasympathetic, rest and digest,
and adrenal cortex.
Yeah.
So the only reason that I'm beating that up for you guys, why do you think I'm pushing that idea so hard with the two of you and myself?
Not sure.
Because in an exam, Tana can say, "Oh, someone has a tumor on their adrenal medulla." And what do you have to know about that? If you don't know that that's adrenergic, well, then you don't know what receptors that's going to affect. You don't know what hormones that's going to affect. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If you can't do hey, oh, by the way, now you have you know what? We have a tumor, or you know what? We've been exposed to a toxin that's diminishing the hormone release of the cholinergic system. Does that make sense? They can ask that. They can use any four of those terms to talk about that system or that side of the system. That's why I'm pushing that so hard, is because they're not going to get into exam and say, Mr. Jones he has a tumor on his adrenal medulla, which is affecting his adrenergic system, which is diminishing his fight or flight response, which is also his sympathetic nervous system. Does that make sense? It's never going to tell you all four of those, but if you know it's a sympathetic nerve, could somebody have a tumor in their brain that's affecting their sympathetic nervous system? Could they have a tumor higher up in their higher cognitive functions up in their brain that could be affecting their adrenal system?
Yeah.
Yeah. What would be so Addison, how would that happen? How would if I had a tumor in my hypothalamus, how could that affect my adrenal gland?
Taking up that space and blocking hypothalamus.
Yeah, so if my hypothalamus is diminished, aren't there hormones being released at the hypothalamus that make the adrenal glands work? Yeah, so that's all I'm saying, is that I'm pushing that so hard because that's the key to understanding the two sides of this system. Okay, so now I beat that to death. Now let's just talk about adrenergic again. What are the receptors that work in the adrenergic system? And I think Angela, you had the receptors already. You were already saying some of them.
Receptors are A1 and B2.
So you have A1, A2. I think I lost Angela. Where'd she go? Uh-oh. Okay, let's keep going, Addison. So what are the receptors on the adrenergic side?
A2, B1, B2.
Yeah, A1, A2, A1, A2, B1, B2. What do those receptors do?
So A1 constricts pulse. B1 has to do one heart, and B2 is lungs.
Yep, you got it. Okay. So what are the exohormones or the transmitters that work in that system? There are three of them.
The transmitters?
Yeah, what are the three hormones that work in that system that make that work?
Is it epi and dopamine?
Yep, epi, norepi, and dopamine, correct?
Right?
Yep, that's right, totally. Okay, and what do those guys do on that? What do those guys do on that? What do they do?
Aren't they increase it?
Yeah, so at A1, what does A1 do?
The arteries.
So sorry again, say what? Say again. What are the four systems that A1 activates? So I can't see, I can't spit, I can't eat, I can't pee, and I can't poop. That's A1.
Yeah. Okay.
So I can't see, I can't spit, I can't pee, and I can't poop. Okay, that's A1.
Mhm.
What does A2 do?
A2 is what controls it.
Yeah, A2 tells A1 to not work so hard that it hurts everything else. Okay, what's B1 do? Or sorry, what's B1? What does B1 do?
B1, it has to do with the one heart.
Okay, so if it's acting on the heart and it's driving stuff up,
It's the heart
so
rate.
so what is it doing to the heart rate? Sorry, say again, Addison.
It's going to increase the heart rate.
Yeah, perfect. It's going to increase the heart rate. So on the lungs, B2, what's going to happen at B2?
It's going to increase the right.
And that's going to increase respirations. Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. So now that's all the receptors and what they do and what works at them. Epi, norepi, and dopamine. Epi and norepi are special, but dopamine's special. What's dopamine's special function in the adrenergic system? What does it do?
Dopamine is make sure the kidneys still holding on.
Yeah, it tells
Not
the
really.
blood vessels. Yeah, it tells the blood vessels around the kidneys to relax and to let blood in there. Because the adrenergic A1 is telling it to constrict and not send blood out there. And A2 and dopamine are telling the A1 system, hey man, you can do that to the heart, you can do that to the lungs, you can do that to the GI system, you can do that to urinary, but you can't do it to urinary so much that you damage the kidneys. Okay, awesome. Cholinergic. Okay, so what are the receptors on the cholinergic side over here?
Cholinergic. Isn't that? Oh wait, let me think. That's the nicotinic in the
Yep, perfect. You're right there. Nicotinic and the other one sounds like muscles.
Yeah, muscarinic.
Nicotinic and muscarinic. Yep. And then what do those two things do?
Nicotinic acts on the muscles.
Yeah, nicotinic acts on those smooth muscles around the GI system. It tells GI to start working again. It says, hey man, start moving that blood from the periphery, from the muscles of the arms and legs to fight or flight, right? And move that blood back into the organs of digestion, the stomach, the intestines. It says, hey man, move blood in there and make those work again. Okay. So if that one's at GI, then what does the nicotinic system do?
The nicotinic has to do with wait, you mean the muscarinic?
So what is A1? Remember what A1 on the adrenergic side did? What did the A1 do?
Constricts.
A1's constricted eyes, mouth. I can't spit, I can't pee, and I can't poop, right? So if I said, hey, listen, my nicotinic is going to if my muscarinic if my nicotinic is relaxing my smooth muscle around my GI and stuff, then my nicotinic has to relax the glands of the mouth and the muscles and vision and urinary. So what I'm saying is that the easiest way to remember the relationship between the adrenergic system and the cholinergic system is whatever the adrenergic system activates, the cholinergic system has to directly work to shut that off, to bring us back to rest and digest. And so the muscarinic and nicotinic receptors do exactly opposite of what A1 does and B1 and B2. And so we have to account for those on our cholinergic side in order to make sure we shut those off. So muscarinic and nicotinic basically reverse the action of I can't see, I can't spit, I can't pee, and I can't poop. And so as long as you account for those four things between your nicotinic and your muscarinic and what they do, then guess what? You've accounted for all four of them and you're done.
Okay.
Does that make sense what I'm talking about? So whatever we
Yeah.
have to activate, we have to challenge on the cholinergic side and shut them off. Okay. So what are the hormones that work on the cholinergic side?
The
There are
wait,
three of
sorry.
them: sugar, salt, sex.
Yes.
Okay, so do you know the names of those? What's the sugar-based one?
Glucose.
Glucocorticoids, right? Or cortisol. So in the thing about this system, the adrenal system, if you haven't noticed, there's 3 or 4 words for each thing that mean the exact same thing. From the very names of them, like cholinergic is also adrenal cortex, which is also rest and digest, which is also parasympathetic. So at the beginning of this discussion of the adrenal system, I kind of beat that to death, because as we move down through this thing, now we're down to the hormones in the cholinergic side, and we can say mineral corticoid, which is aldosterone. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So in a test question, the test question can say, I have an elevated level of aldosterone in my cholinergic system. What's happening? The test question is not going to be nice to you and say cholinergic, parasympathetic, you know what I mean? It's going to say one of those things with one hormone, and it's going to expect that you know that aldosterone is a mineral corticoid and that it's affecting salt.
Yeah.
In that system. Does that make sense? And it's not going to tell you what you have to know all that. That's why I'm pushing this system so hard, because you know dang well, with as much as going on in the adrenal system, in the endocrine system, there are going to be a lot of questions on the test in this part of this.
Yeah.
This is a huge part of what's going on with this. Okay, so we've killed that. So what are the three hormones that work in the adrenergic in the cholinergic system? What are they? Salt, sugar, sex.
Okay.
So what's the sugar one again? What's it called? Yep. Then what's the salt one?
The mineral.
It's mineral corticoid, and it's called. It starts with an A.
The
aldosterone. And what system? Where have we heard aldosterone before?
It's in the adrenal cortex.
Well, no, not RAS.
But
the RAS system.
Oh yeah.
There it is. So again, this thing expects that you know cholinergic, the mineral corticoid is aldosterone, and aldosterone is the outcome of the RAS system. So now, oh, by the way, you have to remember the whole RAS system, what it does. So what does aldosterone do in the system? What's aldosterone's function?
The very end.
It's the very end of the RAS system, but when aldosterone is released, what does it do?
It tells sorry, I'm looking at this thing. It tells the kidneys to hold on to the sodium.
Yeah, and then what does that ultimately end up doing? What is it? If we're holding on to sodium, what's happening? What's the fallback? What's happening next?
That's going to increase.
It's going to increase what?
The blood pressure.
How is it increasing blood pressure? You're right. You're totally on target. Why is it increasing blood pressure?
Because it's holding on to the the sodium follows the water, and then blah blah blah.
Water follows the sodium, and the amount of water in the blood is increased, which drives up cardiac output.
Yeah.
See how developed that was? How much was there? On just that one mineral corticoid. And again, you had to understand cholinergic is adrenal cortex, which is, you know what I mean? Like, here are the receptors, nicotinic, muscarinic. Oh, the mineral corticoid that's being released at the adrenal cortex is aldosterone. And the aldosterone is the end state of RAS, which is increasing sodium in the blood, which is pulling water out of urine and increasing blood pressure. See what I'm saying? How developed that was? How much was there?
Yeah.
That's why I pushing that just a little bit with you guys, because that's crazy, right? I mean, that's a lot to remember, and so that's why I'm pushing it a little bit. And it's been a week since we've looked at any of this. Well, hell, endocrine, it's been longer than a week. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so that's the three hormones in there that it secretes. Now let's talk about Addison's and Cushing's. So what's going on in Addison's disease? This is your disease, by the way.
Okay, so Addison's it's like the D.
So is Addison elevated cholinergic or diminished cholinergic?
Diminished.
It's diminished, right? So if it's diminished, okay, if it's diminished,
Yeah.
and we have diminished what? What's diminished in cholinergic? If I have diminished Addison's, what would be diminished in cholinergic? How does that present in the cholinergic system?
How does it present?
Yeah, so we only have two things in the cholinergic system that can be affected: the number of receptors on organs, or the number of the amount of chemical and hormones that it secretes.
Mhm.
Which one's going to be affected? Are we going to reduce the number of are we going to be able to reduce the number of receptors in our heart very quickly?
It's like a reduced hormone secretion.
It's gonna affect the hormones, right? The hormones are reduced. So what were the three types of hormones that we had in the cholinergic system?
The epi.
No, cholinergic is the other one. Cholinergic is the
cholinergic,
corticosteroids, right? It's the corticosteroids that are going to be.
Yeah,
so what were the three types of corticosteroids?
So,
Yep. So sugar, salt, and sugar, salt, and sex, right? So if I have Addison's disease and I have depressed aldosterone, I have depressed sugar, which is cortisol, and I have depressed sex hormones. Well, if I have depressed sex hormones, do I want to have sex? You cut out. I heard like and then it stopped. What did you say? I'm sorry. If I have depressed sex hormones, do I want to have sex?
no.
No. If I have depressed salt hormone, if I depress aldosterone, then what's happening there?
Cut out.
I've reduced the amount of aldosterone present. So what's going to actually happen? If I reduce the amount of aldosterone present, what's going to happen? So what does aldosterone actually do?
Aldosterone is the thing that increases the blood.
Yeah, so if I take aldosterone away, what happens to my blood pressure? It decreases my blood pressure, right? Okay.
Yes.
If I decrease my corticosteroid or my cortisol, my sugar steroid, well, what does cortisol do?
It's this cortisol is this hormone.
Yeah, cortisol is a stress hormone, right? So if I reduce the amount of cortisol, what happens? If I reduce cortisol, what is cortisol actually doing? Cortisol counteracts epinephrine and norepinephrine on the adrenergic side.
Stress response.
Yeah, yep.
That's what it says.
It said what? I'm sorry, go ahead and read it again.
Building symbolism from building tissues for dealing with the stress.
Okay, that's it. That's cortisol. Okay, that's Addison's disease, right? That's going to be Addison's disease. What's Cushing's disease then?
It's the opposite. So
It's the exact opposite. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's going to be an elevated. So if I said that I have decreased amounts of salt from Addison's disease, what's another medical way of saying a low level of salt? What's the medical term for low level of salt?
What?
You're there. You're going there. I can already hear you saying it. The medical term for low levels of salt is what? Well, let's break it down. So what in medical term, low or below means, what's the term for low and below in med terminology?
Hypo.
Hypo, and the word for salt is a Roman term, right? It's Latin.
Mm-hmm.
What's the Latin word for salt? Are you looking at your notes, you cheater?
I don't know.
Neutramia. Neutramia.
Hyponatremia.
Yeah, hyponatremia is the way that we would say that, right? Okay, so what's the way of saying low blood sugar? How would we say low sugar?
That could be
Well, we already know what low is. What's low? Hypo, right? Hypo's still there. So hypo. And then how do we say sugar in the body? What's the word we use for sugar?
glucose.
Glucose. So what's low blood sugar called? Put the two words together. Hypoglucose. Does that sound right?
No.
Doesn't sound right, does it? Do you know what no blood know what the word when you put those two words together, how do we say it in medical in medicine?
Right?
You're going there. Yep. Hypoglycemia. Excellent. So in Addison's disease, we're going to have hyponatremia, hypoglycemia, and then we're going to have low. Again, we didn't learn a medical term for low levels of sex hormone, right? We just learned low level of sex hormone, low androgen, right? It's going to be because androgens are the names of sex hormones, androgens. Okay, so if we have hyponatremia in Addison's disease, what are we going to have in Cushing's disease if it's elevated?
Sorry, say that again. It cut out.
So if Addison's disease, if we have hyponatremia, then what's going to be the name for elevated levels of sodium in Cushing's disease?
Hypernatremia.
It's what?
Yeah.
God, this keeps cutting out on you too. I hear like half of it. So it's going to be hypernatremia. Okay. Are you still there? Hello? Addison, you still there? I can barely hear you. I'm sorry. Yeah, I can hear you now. Okay, let's keep going. So that's it. So when you say, so again, this is another situation where in a test, they can say, oh, you're hyponatremic. What side of the system are you on? Do you have Addison's or Cushing's? Does that make sense? That's why I'm pushing these terms so hard. Some of these terms so hard is because the test can say you have hyperglycemia. On which side of this system are you on? Well, you have to know I'm on the cholinergic side. I've got Cushing's disease. And I have elevated levels of these hormones because I'm on that side doing that thing. We cool?
Yep.
Okay, let's keep going. Pancreas. What does the pancreas do?
The pancreas creates insulin.
Yep, its control is insulin, right? So we got alpha cells and beta cells.
Yep.
So which one is secreting which one's secreting insulin?
The beta cells.
Beta cells. What are the alpha cells? What do the alpha cells do?
Cells respond to the low.
Sorry, say again.
Respond to the low blood glucose.
Okay. Okay, what's diabetes mellitus?
It's just the type 1, right?
Oh, there's more than type 1. You're on the right track. Type 1 is one type. There's two types.
So it's basically when you're not getting a sufficient amount of insulin.
Yeah, so diabetes mellitus is excessive urine and there's sugar in the urine, right? There'll be sugar present in the urine. That's what diabetes mellitus means. And there's type 1 and type 2. What characterizes type 1?
Diabetes?
So again, I didn't hear everything you said. It went diabetes, and I heard you.
So it's when the pancreas isn't producing the insulin.
Yeah, it's an autoimmune disease, right? And it's when the pancreas, the beta cells are physically destroyed because of autoimmunity. Who normally gets this? When do we normally see type 1?
Genetic.
It's genetic, right? So when is that? Is it present earlier in life or later in life?
earlier.
It presents earlier in life, right? So what about type 2 diabetes? What's going on with that guy?
So that one is typically later in life.
Typically, yeah, we're seeing it in younger and younger people, right? But traditionally, it's not young kids that are getting it. It's usually older people. And what's going on? Why are they getting it? And what's happening to them?
He isn't basically using that, like breaking it down.
Yeah, insulin's present in the body, right? It's at, the pancreas is doing its job. It's secreting insulin. Where's the problem at? Is it at the pancreas or somewhere else?
Sorry, say that again.
Where's the problem at? If the insulin's being created in the pancreas and the beta cells are working, then where is the problem actually at? And why does this person have diabetes?
Because using that energy.
Yeah, the glucose in the blood, right, wants to bind with insulin because insulin opens the door into the cells for glucose. Right? Insulin opens that door. And so it's the door of the cell that's not letting the insulin open the door for the glucose. So it's called, we call it insulin resistant or cell resistance to insulin. The body doesn't want to accept the insulin and say, hey, let that glucose in. And so what happens? The glucose just stays in the blood and the insulin just stays in the blood and then it gets peed out through the urine because it's got nowhere else to go because the insulin's not the door of the cell's not letting it in. Okay, we good? What's the normal range in the blood that glucose should be at?
It should be.
Why does that cut out as soon as you go to say the right answer?
Did it not work?
I did not hear. You said normal and it went away. I didn't hear you say any numbers. I was expecting to hear some numbers. I didn't hear you.
70.
Okay. Awesome. Let's keep going. We got one more slide for review for Unit 9, and then we're going to move on to Unit 10, okay? Why is this not clicking over, piece of crap? There it goes. Okay.
Well, we've been going for an hour.
Oh, we can go for an hour? Okay. We started at 5, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we can stop if you want, but so we talked about, so listen, in Unit 9, what are the 2 biggest pieces of Unit 9 by what there's in there? Looking at these 2 slides, we had that you tell me the 2 systems that were the biggest and most complex that we had. Oh, shoot. Dang you, piece of crap.
Adrenergic and the cholinergic?
Well, no, the adrenal system was the biggest, and the next biggest is pancreatic. And why is that the next most biggest?
Because diabetes is huge.
Because diabetes is in that system. And so what I'm saying is the most amount of time in this unit spent that was those 2 systems, adrenal and pancreatic, because those had the most information in them. So if you're going to die in Unit 9, if you're going to review Unit 9, what do you want to review? The adrenal system and the pancreatic systems. We want to review those the most because that's where the majority of the information was at. Because like DKA is in diabetes, HHS, hyperglycemia in the morning, metabolic syndrome, chronic complications of diabetes are in this. Type 1, type 2, which we went through. We kind of went through all that. But see what I'm saying? We went for an hour. And again, I spent a lot of time talking about the adrenal system, but why did I do that? Because the exam can use 4 terms to talk about one thing, and it expects that you know by association that when you say adrenergic, that's sympathetic, which is fight or flight, which is the adrenal medulla, which is these receptors, right? It expects that you can do all that instantly, right? You know what I mean? As soon as you hear that, that stuff should just regurgitate out of you. And if you can't do that and you struggle with that, guess what you've done? You're going to spend a lot of mental energy just trying to remember what the system does and not figure out what the pathology is. Okay, we cool?
Yep.
Okay, I'll leave you alone. Hey, good job today, by the way. I mean, I think our first review session over the Starbucks was really good. I think that was a good warm up. I think it had been a couple of days for you and for me, and getting together, I think it kind of warmed the juices up. I think we're all still in a little bit of tryptophan turkey mode, right? I'm going to tell you right now, I think every single one of us is tired. and we haven't been doing pathophysiology. We've gotten out of our normal system, our normal flow, our normal schedule, and so we're not thinking very clearly. I mean, let me ask this question: you went to Megan's review session, correct? You went to her part of her review session. How hard was it to come up with some of that stuff when she said it in her little quiz?
It was some of the things I knew. I'm just, thinker.
Yeah, no, I guess all I'm making account to is that some of the stuff, when you heard the answer, you're like, oh, I totally knew that, right?
Yeah.
And it was just slow on the uptake because your mental energy, you hadn't been thinking about it. So, well, good. So when I get back on, I'll be back on at 9:30, and I'll do probably Unit 10 review, and we'll just keep going. If you can make it, great. If you can't, just take a few minutes to look over to Unit 9, Unit 10, and Unit 11, and start spitting up for the exam, and then continue working on Unit 12, and let's keep going.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Have a good day, Addison.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Okay.